The cold, sterile air of a high-rise penthouse usually smells of expensive cologne and success. But on the night of February 14th, it smelled of metallic copper and burnt gunpowder. He's on the floor. There's so much blood. He did it to himself. He's gone. The voice on the 911 dispatch line is trembling, a frantic staccato of breath and half-finished sentences. When the first responders arrived at the luxury residence of Thomas Vance, they found a scene that looked like a textbook tragedy. A single gunshot wound to the temple. A handwritten note resting on a mahogany desk. A locked door from the inside. Within 2 hours, the lead detective made a verbal declaration, a clear-cut case of self-inflicted harm. Case closed. But as the medical examiner finally turned the body over hours later, the silence in the room became suffocating. Thomas Vance was a man known for his meticulous, almost obsessive-compulsive nature, and he was strictly left-handed. Yet the high-caliber pistol didn't just fall from his hand. It was found nearly 6 feet away, positioned near his right side, with the safety catch miraculously engaged. This was the first crack in a story that was about to shatter. You are watching Dark Case Files, and tonight, we dive into a labyrinth of shadows. To understand why this case defies logic, we have to look at the man who allegedly chose to end it all. Thomas Vance was not a man of impulsive whims. At 42, he was a titan of forensic accounting. The kind of man billionaires hired to find money that didn't want to be found. He lived in a world of balanced ledgers, offshore tax havens, and high-stakes corporate espionage. His life was a series of calculated risks, and he was winning. He had no history of depression, no sudden changes in behavior. And most importantly, he was 3 days away from testifying in a federal fraud case involving some of the most powerful names in the shipping industry. The environment of the crime was a fortress of glass and steel. His penthouse featured biometric security and a private elevator that logged every single movement. It was a vacuum where only the invited could enter. And yet, on a night reserved for love and celebration, the vacuum was breached. The timeline of the evening is a chilling sequence of events that plays out like a noir film. At 7:30 p.m., Thomas is seen on CCTV entering the building, carrying a bouquet of lily and a bottle of vintage wine. He looks calm, even smiling at the concierge. At 下午8点, his fiancée, Elena, a woman whose past was as opaque as the smoked glass of the penthouse, arrives. According to her statement, they shared a quiet dinner. She claimed Thomas seemed distanced, staring out the floor-to-ceiling windows at the city lights. She told investigators that at 10:15 p.m., she went to the master bathroom to draw a bath. That was when she heard the thump. Not a sharp crack of a gunshot, but a heavy, muffled sound. When she broke into the locked study, she found the man she was supposed to marry slumped over his desk. The scene was staged to perfection. The note mentioned unbearable pressure and financial ruin. 2 things that, according to Thomas's personal records, simply did not exist. In fact, he had just cleared a $5 million bonus that morning. As the investigation stuttered, the anomalies began to pile up like a mountain of evidence that the police chose to ignore. The locked door mystery was the first to fall. Forensic locksmiths later discovered that the high-end electronic lock on the study door had been bypassed. Using a remote bypass code, a code that only the security firm and the primary account holder knew, or someone who had cloned the master key. Then there was the matter of the gunshot residue. If a man fires a weapon at close range, the microscopic traces of gunpowder are unavoidable. They should have been all over Thomas's left hand. Instead, his hands were clean. Too clean. It was as if they had been wiped down with a chemical solvent before the body was positioned. And the note, the silver bullet of the suicide theory, was analyzed by a graphologist, who noted that while the handwriting matched, the rhythm of the writing indicated extreme physical duress. It wasn't written by a man in reflection. It was written by a man with a gun to his head. The anatomy of the room itself spoke volumes to those willing to listen. The angle of the bullet's entry was almost physically impossible for a self-inflicted wound. Here, the void was shifted 3 inches to the left. This suggested that Thomas had been shot while standing or sitting in a different position. And his body had been moved to the desk afterward to create the suicide tableau. But why would the police overlook this? The lead investigator, Detective Miller, had a history of rapid closures. In this jurisdiction, a suicide meant less paperwork, no public alarm, and a clean city record. But as the family's private investigators dug deeper, they found that Miller's personal bank account had received a series of untraceable crypto deposits. Just 48 hours after the funeral. The deeper we go into the financial records Thomas left behind, the darker the motive becomes. He wasn't just auditing a company. He was dismantling a shadow empire. He had discovered a black ledger, a list of politicians, judges, and high-ranking law enforcement officers who were on the payroll of a multinational conglomerate. This wasn't just about money. It was about the structural integrity of the state. The night he died, he was preparing to upload a mirrored copy of this ledger to a secure server. That upload was interrupted at 10:08 p.m., exactly 7 minutes before Elena claimed to have heard the thump. Someone didn't just want him dead. They wanted his work erased. When the private team recovered his laptop, the hard drive had been subjected to a powerful electromagnetic pulse, rendering the data unrecoverable. This wasn't the work of a distraught man. It was a professional sanitization of a crime scene. Let's look at the suspects who stood to gain. Elena. The grieving fiancée vanished 3 weeks after the cremation. It was later discovered that her model career was a front. She was a high-level corporate social engineer, a honey trap designed to get close to men like Thomas. Her real name was Sofia Belova, and she had links to several unsolved deaths in Eastern Europe. Then there was the CEO of the shipping firm, Marcus Thorne. Thorne had seen his stock price plummet as rumors of Thomas's audit leaked. On the night of the death, Thorne's private jet was logged at a small municipal airport just 20 miles from the city. He claimed he was there for a private retreat, yet no hotel or resort had a record of his stay. The web of connections was vast, stretching from the penthouse floor to the highest offices of the land, all woven together to ensure that one man's truth would go to the grave with him. The psychological profile of Thomas Vance also contradicts the official narrative. He was a man of the future. He had just purchased a vacation home in Tuscany. He had a flight booked for the following week. He was a man who planned his life in 5-year increments. Suicidal individuals often exhibit terminal behaviors, giving away possessions, saying goodbye, or withdrawing. Thomas was doing the opposite. He was expanding his life. The note they found was a masterpiece of forgery or coercion. It used phrases Thomas never used. He was a man of cold, technical prose. The note was flowery, overly dramatic, and filled with grammatical errors. Errors that a man who prided himself on linguistic precision would never make, even in his final moments. The autopsy report, initially suppressed, revealed another shocking detail. Faint bruising marks on Thomas's upper arms, consistent with being held down. A trace amount of a paralytic agent in his bloodstream, not enough to kill him, but enough to make him unable to fight back. He was conscious, aware, but immobile when the gun was pressed to his head. This turns a tragic suicide into a horrific act of torture. They wanted him to watch his own end. They wanted him to know that they had won. The locked door was a psychological trick, a way to make the first people on the scene believe in the impossible. But in the world of true crime, the impossible is often just a well-executed illusion. As we sit here today, the case of Thomas Vance remains officially closed by suicide in the government archives. The penthouse has been sold to an anonymous shell company. Detective Miller has retired to a private island with no extradition treaty. Elena or Sofia has changed her face and her name once again, blending back into the shadows of the global elite. But the evidence doesn't sleep. It sits in boxes, in digital fragments, and in the memories of those who refuse to let the lie stand. The story of Thomas Vance is a reminder that the system we trust to protect us is often the very system that can be bought to bury us. The questions remain, echoing in the halls of that empty penthouse. How many other suicides are sitting in police files right now, waiting for someone to notice the weapon is in the wrong hand? How many killers are walking among us, protected by the very badges meant to hunt them? The evidence in the Vance case didn't just suggest foul play. It shouted it from the rooftops. But in a world where power dictates the narrative, the truth is often a luxury that the dead cannot afford. We are left to piece together the shards of a broken life, hoping that one day, The weight of the evidence will finally tip the scales of justice. There is a final haunting detail that the private investigators discovered months later. Thomas had a secondary, analog backup system. Deep in the walls of his childhood home, he had hidden a physical ledger. This ledger contains the names, the dates, and the crimes of those who thought they had silenced him. It is a ticking time bomb, a dead man's switch that is yet to be fully triggered. The individuals named in that book are still out there, watching the news, waiting for the knock on the door that never comes. They think they are safe. They think the suicide ruling is their ultimate shield. But they forgot one thing: a man like Thomas Vance always has a plan. Even from the grave, he is still auditing their lives, still tracking their movements, still waiting for the ledger to balance. The public reaction to the case was one of initial shock followed by a manufactured silence. The media outlets that initially questioned the ruling were suddenly hit with massive libel lawsuits or were bought out by parent companies linked to Marcus Thorne. The narrative was suppressed with surgical precision. But the internet is a different story. In the dark corners of forums and whistleblower sites, the Vance files have become a rallying cry for those who seek the truth. They share the photos of the crime scene, pointing out the safety catch on the gun, the clean hands, the impossible angle. They see what the detectives refuse to see. They know that a man doesn't choose to die 3 days before his greatest victory. They know that a locked door is just a challenge, not an answer. In the end, the case of Thomas Vance is not just about a murder. It's about the fragility of truth in an age of total surveillance and total corruption. It's about the courage of one man to stand against a tide of filth, and the price he paid for that courage. It's a story that asks us to look closer, to question the obvious, and to never accept a convenient lie over a difficult truth. As we close the file on this chapter, we have to ask ourselves, if this could happen to a man as powerful and prepared as Thomas Vance, what chance do the rest of us have? The shadows are long, the players are powerful, and the game is rigged. But as long as there are people willing to look at the evidence, the light will never truly go out. So we turn the final page on this tragedy, but the story isn't over. Not really. The evidence is still there waiting. The blood is still crying out from the floorboards. And the killers? They're still watching. They might even be watching this right now. If you're out there, know this. The truth doesn't stay buried. It grows. It rots the foundation of your lies until the whole structure comes crashing down. Thomas Vance may be gone, but his work is far from finished. Who really killed Thomas Vance? Was it the fiancé who wasn't who she claimed to be? Was it the CEO with everything to lose? Or was it a system so corrupt that it killed one of its own to protect its secrets? The evidence says murder. The state says suicide. Who do you believe? Look at the facts, look at the shadows, and decide for yourself. Because in the world of dark case files, the most dangerous thing you can do is believe the official story. Thank you for joining us for this deep dive into the darkness. This has been one of the most complex and chilling cases we've ever covered. And it wouldn't be possible without your support. If you found this investigation compelling, make sure to hit that like button and share this video. The more people know the truth, the harder it is for them to hide it. Don't forget to subscribe to Dark Case Files and turn on all notifications so you never miss a new mystery. We have a lot more secrets to uncover, and we're just getting started. Now I want to hear from you. Drop a comment below with your theories. Do you think the Black Ledger will ever see the light of day? And who do you think was the real mastermind behind the hit on Thomas Vance? Let's get a discussion going. Sometimes the collective mind of the audience can find the one detail the professionals missed. Stay curious, stay skeptical, and most importantly, stay safe. The world is a lot darker than it looks on the surface. Until next time, this is Dark Case Files signing off. Keep searching for the truth, no matter where it leads.